of life in private staffing. Hope you've all had a good couple of weeks since our last episode. As you know, every week we have different people on, different guests on who have different professions within the private sector. And we try and sort of mix it up and get different people every sort of couple of weeks. And this week is no different. Really looking forward to this week. We're joined by Kate Bright, whose line of work I'm absolutely fascinated with, just because I know so little about it. I think if you're in the world of security, you're very familiar, and if you're not, you're not, and that's that really. But she's ultimately a bodyguard who has since set up Umbra International, a security firm, and being female and looking like a model, etc. She is just not really what you'd expect when it comes to security, but is highly regarded in the industry. Her company is highly regarded. She's done a TED talk, like absolute real deal. So I'm super, super keen to find out a little bit more about her, how she got into it, her journey, and what her job entails really. So welcome to the show, Kate. How are you?
Well, with an introduction like that, I think I should hire you to do my PR.
Yeah, there we go. A backup for me.
Thank you for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. You're doing such awesome work in the sector. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no, thank you very much. Thanks for coming, giving up your time. So I've only ever had I've been doing this about a year now, and we've had one person before who works in the security sector who you actually know, Mason. Mason was on last year, and it's still by far like one of my favourite episodes. And I think it is because it was just fascinating to me because I know so little about it. And I think people are like, oh my God, you're a bodyguard, that's mental. But to you, it's not. It's your profession, but to us, it is. So it's just super interesting. Like, where did it all start for you? Well, how long have you been doing it, and where did it all start?
So I'll come back to Mason because he is a fantastic human being and has been so supportive. As you know, there's the people that along the way you can count on one or two hands, those people that just really championed where you wanted to get to. He's one of those people. But it all started really when I left uni and I got rejected from every single graduate training scheme. It was I blame it on the 2001 bubble, but actually it's probably because I wasn't any good at what I was applying to get to. And when I left Royal Holloway, they gave me a lot of the PA recruitment agencies in London. And at that time, it was in the dark ages before the internet. So I literally went up to London with my CV and I went around Golden and Soho Square and physically handed my CV to recruiters. I ended up working for the CEO of a company that was being acquired by Disney. And on my first day, I was working in the sort of with the C-suite, the board of directors, and the actual owner of Disney had flown in. And so I was thrown right into the sort of the deep end of what it was like to work with really kind of intense characters and personalities. And from there, I went to work with a series of individuals and three main families that I worked with. And through my career, so from 2000 to about 2013, I was working for families and clients who were increasingly high profile or in some way needed this kind of security. This word security became a bit of a big deal. And if you also think about that time as well, we use the word cyber these days, like we sort of sprinkle it on things. We don't really know what it means, but we sort of say it. You know, think back to 2000, 2005, 2010, this was all emerging. So I was working with the sort of clients who had not only physical risk, but also digital risk at a time when it was very experimental. We didn't really know what was going on. I got my first iPad and I was like, oh, you know, that's fun. Swinging it around in my handbag in London, you know, perhaps I should have had it encrypted. But again, at those sort of times, you didn't really sort of necessarily have an idea of what we do have now, which is more of an understanding about the risks around data and data management, particularly when you're working with high profile people. So I became really involved in the security function. I was ended up a chief of staff, which if people don't know that's also a function within a private office working for these sort of clients where you are the chief of the staff, literally. You're not, some people have these sort of White House kind of, it goes off on a White House tangent, but I definitely wasn't working in the White House. And part of my remit was to actually work alongside the security function. And so I got really involved in this whole other area of people management, but also the processes, the logistics, understanding, you know, why a recce was so important. Trying to keep that PA mindset of being really organized was really useful for the teams because they really needed good, you know, logical information presented in a really sort of clear manner. And it was the head of security that for the last family that I worked with, who said that I should go and do my training, because he's just said it would be really useful for you. You know, it's not necessarily go and become a female bodyguard, but do the training and see if that gives you some insight into, you know, more insight into what you do on a day-to-day basis. So I went and did the course, and it was, you know, I know a lot of the PA community, we don't often get opportunities to do any sort of training, let alone a close protection or bodyguard license. I'll use the word close protection because that's a sort of the common term, but I absolutely loved the training. The training is a blend of theoretical stuff, so learning about how to you know, abide by the laws of the country, understanding about data protection, the Private Security Industry Act, all the way through to then the practical stuff. So day one, we were given our earpiece and we had to go out and simulate an exercise, and we took it in turns in our team of trainees. Who was the boss? Who was the right hand person? Who was the sort of advanced party? Who was the back party? And I tell you what, it was, and for anyone who's ever been a PA or an EA would understand, it just really appealed to the logical, organized plan A, B, C, D to Z person in me. And I've always, I think ever since I was a kid, I've always had that sort of desire to organize, plan, you know, good in a crisis, you know, things go wrong, right, okay, pivot, solution. And I think for me that the training really opened my eyes to not only the usefulness that I would have in my teams with my background as a PA, but also the fact that I am a woman, I'm 6 foot, I keep myself physically fit and strong, and that I was able to then go back and work in the teams, not only within that family environment, but I then became operational, and I could see that the role of particularly women in close protection for this sort of type of client had become something that was just totally outside of what I had imagined it to be. So let alone now I spend my time talking about it to kind of break down the sort of the myths and the stereotypes. But truly and honestly, I'm in the same position as a lot of people listening probably think now. It was a revelation to me that actually, as we were going through, and we were at sort of 2013 when I got the license, so 2014, 2015, that was a time when risk and threat was becoming a kind of digital and physical kind of combo. And invisible security, and you mentioned the TED Talk, the culmination of those 5 years by then in 2018 was a TEDx talk about invisible security, because I'd seen firsthand how useful it was, not just as a woman, but also as with team members that had come from, you know, royalty protection backgrounds or intelligence backgrounds, men, women from different countries, different cultures. And it was kind of like the biggest eye opener for me. And simultaneously, I kind of saw that security was moving in a different direction, that there was a real gap in the market. I mean, the traditional industry was being faced with this tsunami of like sort of digital, cyber, the two were sort of not necessarily talking to each other. And certainly that my clients were simply like, I just want to get a home security upgrade, go. And the PA in me was then pulling in all the best suppliers, and almost then started to realize that Umbra was born. I think I always say that Umbra is a business that never really sort of started. There was never a plan at the start. It was mostly through what clients were asking me to do. But it's definitely based on the fact that I had the experience, the 15 years working client side before. I'd done this training, and suddenly there was this whole new world. So I kind of, the start of the business and the early years of the business was definitely experimental. I was and still am operational. I will still go and help clients, particularly where they're going through sticky times, or we call trigger events. So things like disruptions in, you know, family structures that we all go through, things, you know, divorces and all those sort of things. When you are in the public eye, or when you are hugely wealthy, those situations and those sticky wickets can become quite complex if they're not managed in a really sort of private and safe and secure way. So the business has really evolved, but I credit it all to that head of security that said to me, go and get the training and enter stage right Mason Haynes, because I remembered having got my training, I was then going around to all of the different sort of security companies that I knew of, or private security companies that I knew of. And he was working for one at the time. And I'll never forget meeting him because he is 7 foot basically, and looks like what I would imagine now, having I'm still only halfway through Vikings. I've been watching it for about a year, but he is such an awesome presence. I remember meeting him and thinking, oh my god, he's really tall. He is the kindest, loveliest, most sort of cerebral. He is such a supportive, collaborative force within the industry, and he just kind of got it. And I don't know how and why, but what I was trying to articulate then, which is this whole idea of security concierge and secure lifestyle and myth busting and making security really simple, taking out jargon, making it really accessible and relevant to clients, but also to wider communities. I don't just want to work for the top 1%. We're spreading our message farther and wide. He was there banging my drum from like 2013 onwards. So it's a hugely collaborative industry, and it's definitely one that does seem very kind of underground until you earn your stripes and work within it. And the only reason I think I've been able to grow a business within and alongside the industry is having been operational, and is that mindset of learning all the time. I don't know everything about the sort of bodyguard function. I'm not a finished result, and I think that's a really healthy mindset to have within the security function. Always be learning, always be growing. If I can learn, things for me like languages are quite readily accessible to me, and that becomes a USP when I'm then working with a client from that particular country or culture. So for the guys and women that leave places like the military and the places you would expect that close protection comes from, they've already got this professional development mindset already ingrained in them. So I've learned so much about the fact that I can go and do an Israeli martial arts course, which I did, and I actually really enjoyed it. And actually that's another skill that I would never have had in my toolkit had I not done the close protection training. So keeping that kind of, always be learning mindset is again one of the reasons that I credit for being able to grow a business and survive the last year in a pandemic. That kind of change mindset, and what's the opportunity with change, and what skills do we need to learn to be safer and better and more protective of our infrastructure, our team, our people, our families that we work for, and our own families. So that's the journey really.
It's like amazing, and it's like not one you'd expect, but like what that makes so much sense for an employer to send someone who is that involved in the running of their life, like the PA, chief of staff, to be exposed to the security element, which is of huge importance. And the PA team or the chief of staff and the sort of internal team need to work incredibly well with the security function and be prepared, like I said, the recce's, and know where you're going and what you're doing, and to keep those things separate. And I do find that often families will outsource their security to a thing, so no one knows each other. It's not like it's an in-house security function, it's outsourced, so no one knows each other, yet it's all meant to just work. Like it makes absolutely perfect sense, can't be that expensive, and it's only going to strengthen his internal support structure, isn't it?
Totally. And I'm part of so having spent a long time in the PA, EA, chief of staff, whatever you want to call it, function, got a great network of people in that sector, and they know, because I've found ways to present the actual close protection training to them. But I think what we've come to now, and what we're launching this year, is this sort of accessible kind of security awareness training in little modules, e-learning style, just to give busy PAs, EAs, chief of staff an opportunity to kind of fact check themselves. We're saying cyber, like I said, a module to kind of delve into a bit more of an understanding about that, because not many people have the 160 hours of time for their bosses to say, okay, go and do your close protection training, because I know how busy the roles are. Whereas bite-sized chunks, I think what you said is absolutely correct. It's this communication between the different team members. And I think I've worked in environments where you've got so many different functions around a family, from the home functions, household staffing functions, the children functions, nannies. There's lots of different sort of silos, And if you can have a common understanding, for me, it was a love of the phonetic alphabet. So my nickname was Kilo Bravo. So I got it, and I was working with the security team like that. But if you're working in a function where you don't really get the phonetic alphabet, you've never really met anyone from an environment that's, really elite mindset and really kind of like, process driven, it can be a little bit of a jar. So a lot of the time we spend with clients is sort of kind of a bit of like a management consultant would do to sort of explain to come into an organization and sort of be good cop, bad cop. It's like bringing those functions together. And I think I've always said that I think that more clients should hire in their security on a full-time PAYE basis. I just think it makes a lot of sense in the right scenario, particularly when you've got younger children growing up, just to have that stability and that safety, security of fully embedded team members. And then you can grab all the other team. You can give them this sort of like, I'm not asking your butler to become a ninja or your head of house to know how to kind of fight his way out of a paper bag. But just that common understanding, a bit of common language, a bit of a teamwork ethos around security, because we're not even talking about the top 1% anymore. We've got a broad range of clients for whom it's either peace of mind or privacy, or they may not be in the public eye, but they may just want to live in the Cotswolds nice and privately and not have any kind of dramas. And so for us, I think it's just as important that the language that's used, and this I sort of say about jargon, demystifying the terminology, so that anyone in the team can switch on a thermal imaging camera system and understand it step by step, and that the security teams don't feel like they are not part of the sort of the day-to-day running as well. Just that integration, I just think it makes it much smoother and safer, even for those that because you're probably thinking it's only a very small amount of people that need a bodyguard, but actually it's an increasing amount of people that want individuals that work with them to have this extra layer of understanding and security. So not least of which the understanding that nannies will be some part of that kind of protective, just aware function. So we're really banging the drum for just everything in my life. Whenever you bring people together to talk a common language and share issues, concerns, you always have a better outcome. And certainly the clients will then reap the rewards in terms of their safety and security.
So clients who come to Umbra and ask for your help, what typically are they asking for? Can it really range, or are they like, for the people listening, for example, what would you say you offer to clients?
So there's three parts of the business now: select, advise, secure. So select is where you would come to hire, as I say, your full-time security team, ex-military personnel. So a lot of our clients will come to us, particularly where they're wanting a chief of staff function that may have come from a military background, or someone from the sort of background that we've developed. A very sort of, it's not just, we're not talking database, we're talking relationships. We know these individuals, and not just here in the UK, but globally. So select is very much a kind of curated, almost sort of headhunty type part of the business. The advisory function is where we meet a lot of clients going through, as I say, these trigger events. So we will get a phone call from a client referral via another client, or say a law firm dealing with a particularly tricky kind of divorce case or dispute case, and we will then provide an advisory function. So there's myself and my head of ops who would then kind of step in on that side. And then the doing part is Umbra Secure. So that's the security concierge. And that can be, to be honest, Philip, I mean, we've got live examples is probably an easier way of going through it. Home security upgrades has been a big one through COVID. The health considerations, where you've got health and safety of team members during, again, another COVID learning. So temperature checking, testing, all of that sort of stuff, which security has started to become a bit more of that health function. Protective projects, so whether that's short, sharp, travel-based projects. We've still had clients traveling throughout COVID, but it's been much more hyper-personalized, chaperone travel for younger members of the family, for example, all the way through to the digital sphere. So, I've been hacked, which actually in some cases is a real problem, or it has come from a third party, or actually is simply an opportunistic attack. I think we've all had weird and wonderful things in our inboxes this year while the world's been online. We've all had to be a bit more hyper vigilant. For our clients, they've had to actually be a bit more aware. And if they are still using things like Gmails and Hotmail accounts, we've had a lot of our tech, IT tech time in use this year from a remote capacity as well. We've never done that before. It's always been in person, sending teams on site, but we've actually now enabled a way that we can look at risk and threat from a digital perspective, from a remote point of view as well. So a whole range of what we call the digitals, the physical, and also this idea this year that a lot of our clients have really realized that they have to start being really good online citizens. So we've had a few sticky wickets, shall we say, where particularly for more high profile, vocal, people that sort of have an opinion, places like Twitter, that the understanding that what you put online is a direct reflection of your risk profile in a physical sense. So I think the penny has dropped this year for a lot of our clients as well. So the security concierge Umbra Secure function on any given day is a really exciting part of the business, because it can be projects in full flow or projects coming to a close, and then new inquiries coming through on a 24-hour basis. So it's quite an exciting time for the business. I would say that particularly where I was at within being a PA and EA, I didn't necessarily know where to go to get really good recommendations. And we are a business that doesn't hold on to our ex-military personnel candidates. We don't hold on to our knowledge. We love sharing it. So if anyone ever gets into a sticky wicket themselves, I've been there. I had to sort out a new locks. This was in 2009. So, the internet was sort of around, but, you don't really want to Google a big, large, global family. You don't want to Google best locks in Mayfair. That's not the best way of going about it. So we have a really lovely network of suppliers and 1- and 2-man bands, all the way up to global companies that we collaborate with. So if anyone ever gets into a situation, what I want to leave behind is that that there's this sort of collaborative network and opening security out. So if anyone has any sort of, it's the silly questions that are the big ones, right? If I'd known where to go to get the best locks in 2009, I possibly would have been able to give more value and more safety and security to my clients. So, be careful what I wish for. I mean, the inbox does get a little bit overwhelmed at times, but I do stick by that commitment that if people want to know and want to work with really amazing individuals on the security side, or get really good recommendations, we're here to signpost. That's ultimately what we want to kind of leave behind.
You know what? I'm such a champion also of the collaborative approach, because typically in recruitment, recruiters are so weird. It's like, I'm not talking to you because you might nick my client, or oh my God, it's just absolutely ridiculous. If you want to fight your own fight, you do that, but you will not get far. Work together. The amount of stuff I do for free, the amount of time I give people, and it all, it's nice, it's fun. It's a nice way to be. Karma definitely plays a part, and it all comes back. But you will learn, the more you talk to people, I learn more from my competitors than anybody else. And so if you sit here and shut the door and do your own thing because you're the best, well, you're a bloody idiot.
You're absolutely right. I think this pay it forward. It does come back. My business has been built on 15 years of doing what I do now as favors, basically. Yeah. And so I think, and also I'd add to that, this is the year where I have learned that we have access to incredible people. I am not going to stop incredible people getting into incredible new positions. In recruitment, we're changing lives. We're helping people come from sometimes nothing into really amazing environments. Some of our clients, they can be demanding, they can be tricky, of course, but they're offering amazing opportunities. We're living through a time now where if you are not able to look at yourself in the mirror and look at the last year, and as any leader of any organization, however big or small, and not join the dots for somebody during that time, sitting on a database of GDPR compliant individuals, they're human beings. So our candidates are our clients, because they go off into the wild and the wilderness and the new fantastic jobs, and hopefully they'll be banging the drum saying, oh, you know what, those guys, they were great. So for me, this has been the year where, and my accountant will let me know whether that's worked out in the next couple of weeks of the year end. But genuinely, that I will live by that principle of paying it forward, but also that in any kind of recruitmenty type, we don't actually call it even recruitment, but in any way that we are helping individuals move into new careers, I don't think you can, in this current economic climate, sit on really good people when you know of opportunities that they could be put into just because there's a fee involved. Now that's different to not thinking commercially and not being commercially minded. And you and I are both on the same page about that. I just think that there's an energistic.
Yeah, good word.
There's energy around it, and I think it is. You and I only sat here now because of the fact that we were both reaching to the sort of collaborative ether. And LinkedIn, who would have known it in 2014 when I logged on to that clunky at the time platform? You can connect with the world, and it's not about holding on to things, it's about actually sharing and collaborating. That's the only way that I think, from the security industry all the way through to the private client sector, I think there's so much opportunity. And in line with my surname, I'm always going to be glass half full, always. But there is so much opportunity when you have that same vibe, which you clearly do, to actually give and provide value in a far more reaching way. And you probably have the same, where people will contact you and say, oh, you helped me here and you helped me there, and thank you so much. And you're thinking, oh, when was that again? Because it should just become part of the DNA of, and with my team as well, it's this above and beyond, like what's the extra that we can do? What's the sort of, even this morning I picked up the landline because it's very flat structure, and it was one of our candidates, and he couldn't, his computer died. I mean, who hasn't had a tech issue this year, right? And I said, oh, just snap it and WhatsApp it to me. And he was like, it was like I'd invented the, I don't know, I'd put man on the moon. Just little things like that where you can just be a human about it. And I said, oh, don't worry, we'll tap it up for you. Send me the Easter egg. Anyway, he sent me a message earlier picking out the Easter egg. A stupid example, but like that for me on a Friday during a pandemic, it's like I'll take an Easter egg.
I think it all boils down to why you do what you do. And like, recruiters typically have a really bad name, and it's because of the recruiters that don't do it for the passion. They do it because it's a job, and they do it to make money. Recently someone said to me, God, this podcast, how long have you been doing it for? About a year. Well, how do you make money from it? Well, I don't. Well, what's the point then? Well, that's the point. Like, I don't do it to make money. I'm doing it because people have found it a really nice way to come together during a time when we felt all isolated. People who don't know much about the sector have learned loads about the sector. I've connected so many people off the back of it. People have got jobs off the back of it. Like, that is so enough for me. Like, that's awesome.
Well, I tell you what, I've also experimented with Insta Live. I'm on Instagram, and even that as well. I was sort of thinking the other day, I've done about 5 or 6 now. I've had random messages, people not knowing that people knew each other. I did this thing called Thirsty Thursday a few years ago, and literally I would go to a place on a Thursday and a pub when I was working in Mayfair, and I would just, people would say, oh, where are you? And I'd just bring people together. I had marriages, had with good solid business outcomes for other people. And I just think being part of bringing people together and experimenting with platforms as well. Was I the best possible Instagram live person? No, definitely not. Did I enjoy it, and was there some good outcome from it? Yeah, definitely. So that's like you with the podcast, that's something that I think I want to get people and talk to people who I admire, who are interesting. Good stuff will just happen. It just will. So yeah, I'm pleased to see that you're sticking to your guns, and the naysayers, let them not talk. And
also on LinkedIn, like sharing vacancies. So like vacancies, there'll be vacancies from clients, from private PA saying we're looking for XYZ. No agencies. I'll still share that post because I've got tons of people looking for work on my network. It's not that like, oh, if you're not going to use me, I'm not going to share it. Like, that is like you said, there's lots of people looking for work. Like, the worst outcome is I don't get paid. and people don't get jobs. The best outcome is they use me, I get paid, people get jobs, but there's still bits in between. People can get jobs and without, and if I can be part of that, which is exactly what you've said, we think the same.
Yeah. We do.
Yeah, there we go. So in terms of like, there's two things I want to talk about. One being a female bodyguard, because there must be a demand for that, especially with Middle Eastern clients, I would have thought. Also the invisible side of bodyguarding, which I think is a lot more prominent with the sort of ultra high net worth. You get your D-list celebs that want your Masons, your very, very obvious bodyguards. But I think there's a lot of our clients that do not want people to know they're surrounded by security. And so talk to me a bit about invisible, or the point of invisible bodyguarding.
So I as I said at the start, I realized once I'd done my training and became operational that I was able to work in and help a team in a way that they possibly wouldn't have been able to if it had been just a sort of an all male or even just an all female team, you know, in the converse situation. If you take the example of Mason as a 7-foot Viking, actually he has clients with the sort of risk profile where you know, paparazzi, fixated people, which is a posh way of saying stalkers, you know, there's different risks and different threats. Now he may also be very useful for the sort of clients where they want that deterrent in order that in the background other things can be happening. So for example, me checking into the hotels for lunches and dinners with my head of security is just two people checking into a hotel doing a recce, whereas you know, checking into a hotel with two guys, curly whirlies, you know, suddenly there's like a, you know, I'm quite attuned to it, but it's still more obvious. And I think for me, there's been several penny drop moments, not least of which where the use of women, and let's get away from, and I said it in my TEDx talk, I'll live to regret it, but at the time, you know, women and children, like working in environments where there's families, you know, being able to blend in and look like the nanny or look like the PA. It's a very physical industry. I am not appropriate to work for some clients because of the fact I am a woman and 6 foot and blonde. And therefore there's a range of women in the industry for whom clients may prefer to work with someone who more closely looks like or resembles another part of their family, for example. So it's a really interesting one because there's a growing demand. There's only 5.75% of all close protection operatives are female that are licensed currently, and we're standing at about 10-15% of the requests that come in. So it's a supply, for me it's a commercial issue. We don't have enough good supply versus the demand, and I think I'm encouraging more women to come into the sector. It's a difficult time for the industry itself, in as much as we're coming off the back of a pandemic. The actual training itself, there's a cost involved to that. So, you know, it's not as accessible as it shouldn't be. You know, there should be a sort of minimum standard, obviously. But I do think that there's an entry point for everybody. There's a reason for the industry needing to be reflective of the society that we live in. And so I'm really trying to do things to enable others to come into the industry, like men and women coming from sporting backgrounds. So we've personally funded individuals from rugby, ex-rugby, pro rugby, men and women, because they come into a team environment. Not only have they got a different mindset, but the same teamwork ethos, discipline, all that sort of stuff. But they give that different edge and flavour to a team. And, you know, give me an ex-professional female rugby player who's perhaps, you know, played at a high level and, you know, from an athletic and fitness point of view, tick. From a mindset point of view, tick. This blendability, and I think with living in modern times, you know, we're living in crazy times. We're living in times that are changeable moment to moment, day to day. And I think it's for me, it's less about the actual female part of it. It's more about the invisibility and the discretion and the privacy with which the security function of today has to operate. And I think there's a place for everyone. It's a really exciting time for the industry. But for me, it's also maintaining standards of training, but also making sure that we get the right sort of remuneration and salary for these sort of roles as well. I think the broader industry, when you say security, you're often thinking everything from sort of man guarding and sort of static security. This is still a part of the license activity, but for which there's a very sort of it's a smaller part of the industry, admittedly. But it's about shining a light on how useful that part of the industry is for clients, and that we need that figure of 5.75% to increase in good quality, but we do need it from a business perspective. And for clients, I think it's just as important that the chemistry factor works. As you and I both know, a lot of what we do with the clients we work with is matching those sort of the individuals that are going to work really well with that client. And it's been really great to see, particularly from our international clients. We've got clients in the US who are used to working with, ex-Navy SEALs, for example. We're bringing in this sort of different, maybe bringing in guys and women from sporting backgrounds and NFL and all that those sort of backgrounds. They're seeing the benefit of working with a diverse range of operatives on younger elements of the family. So if I was my client, I would want an ex-Navy SEAL, ex-NFL, I'd want an ex-female special service. Like, that's the kind of role models I'd like around my family, to understand what it's like to play in a Super Bowl, or I don't know if you've got to that level, but that sort of, and even from a practical point of view as well, that range of skills, you could then, have the younger members of your family be, having training and doing extra sort of, from the physical fitness point of view. Again, all we ever do is think, what would our clients want? What's the sort of empathetic approach to security? And, as a result of that, a lot more women hopefully are going to be entering into the industry, and clients will see that this is part of the security of the future.
A lot of your work for close security or close protection or whatever, a lot of the work surely must be preventative rather than actually having to use physical force to get get your clients out of a dangerous situation. Most of it must just be preventative.
It's the old adage that if you're in a situation where you're having to fend off somebody else, it's gone really wrong. Why are you in that position? Close protection, you were working with that person. You're not there to fight other people, because then who's looking after your principal? So the plan A to Z, the back logistics function. Some of the close protection operatives that don't even go out and about, that are working within home protection or planning or operational, sitting there, working out where, how and where to go, particularly when you're going between different cities of the world. Movement creates risk. So being able to prevent things from happening, the proactive mindset. If you're in a reactive state, it's not a good place to be for you or a client. So the sort of the idea that physical brute force, being physically fit and strong is different, because then there's certainly from a client's feeling of safety and the peace of mind, then I think that's a really important part of the puzzle. But definitely this invisibility that is also extends across this proactivity, I think is definitely something that we're seeing much more of it's a mindset shift for clients, because and also for people that haven't come across the function before, the stereotypes, again, the myths of what the role actually is. A lot of it is preparing, plan, recce, and that the administrative and the PA and the EA functions can really work very closely with that function to enable diary planning to be really effective, so that you're not sort of racing around doing a recce an hour before something's happening and not then able to plan a route accordingly. So a lot of the sort of if it's gone wrong scenarios. I'm doing a kidnap and ransom webinar in a few weeks, and actually I'm on the panel to talk about why we'd never get to that point. There are individuals on that panel that have experienced it firsthand, and we're coming at it from a never ever getting yourself into that scenario in the first place. So and I think I'd finish by saying, I think security in itself is a very scary word. It's all about things going wrong, and I think we need to help our clients to come out of that paranoid state of mind, and I think as the world opens up as well, I think it's going to be really important. Security is going to be, and close protection as a function. The better you know and get to know your clients, the more you'll be able to add more value in a world that's going to kind of open up in random ways, and travel that's going to open up in random ways. So I think, it's going to be an interesting time ahead.
So over the course of the last year then, just to sort of like wrap up a little bit, so COVID hit. From a numbers point of view, were you affected? Did business really slow? Well, for us it completely stood still, pretty much this one, but how did it affect you?
So we have been busy throughout, and I think that's because I've just said security shouldn't be a reactive function, but I think a lot of our clients reacted.
Well, we had to in this situation, because who the hell knew?
Yeah, exactly. So there was the whole issue of locking down with teams, which teams, a lot of the health and safety considerations that I mentioned before, a lot of help with logistics and planning and who was going to end up where. And I think as the pandemic has evolved, the different pockets of opening up, and we have clients from all around the world. So getting them to places where they can be, or getting the children back into schooling environments. And so and also more tension, more sort of more issues around families being in one place, IT systems under stress, potentials for risks to digital infrastructures, because you're used to using your email address on the go, but you're not used to using eight different family members in one home, all kind of pulling on a broadband that hasn't been designed safely enough. So to be honest, it's been a busy year. Certainly for security recruitment, certainly for the kind of reactive stuff, which I've just contradicted myself. But I think we're now coming into a phase where people have had a bit of time to be at home as well. So where is home? How to protect the home? What's important? Good quality staff and team members. All of those sort of things are we're coming into another evolution of the business, but hard work. I mean, it has been a year where, as I say, ending up on Insta Lives, that is not something I thought I would be doing this time last year. Everyone working remotely in my team, not something that I thought was going to happen. Our team members that actually we were working with and collaborators across the world, I thought I had to go and see to actually get stuff done. Actually, I will have to get back to doing a lot more traveling again, but we've still managed to go and grow. So, and again, through collaborative effort. And also I think I would finish by saying a bit of the kindness and caring. I went through every single one of our client referrals, clients, legal network, and I checked in with every single person in April and was like, how are you? And a simple thing like that, which security is a protective function, but security is a caring function. Like, are you okay? Mindset wise as well, this whole idea of security being also about mental resilience, and your sort of your mental fitness being a result or component of your feeling of paranoia. And I think that's again, we're a business that's a work in progress. We've definitely, the shape of the business is different, and I would say much more efficient as you do, working with a lot of data in the organization. We're probably a lot better positioned than we were this time last year. We've had things like a website. I didn't have a website this time last year, which is ridiculous. But absolute learning mindset. Every day is a school day. Ups and downs of changing restrictions, team members pregnant, all these sort of things where, in each other's homes, it's been full on, and you just got to rise to the challenge. And people like yourself who are leading the industry, people are looking to those individuals that can provide some sort of calm in the clarity and calm in the chaos. And we've just got to keep going, right? We've just got to sort of see how this evolves. But ultimately it's collaboration is going to win the day. So we're looking forward to riding the storm with our client and candidate community, and just being prepared for what's next. That's the whole essence of security, right? Be prepared and then change the plan and keep going.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I know that there's been a lot of just horrible, sad situations for a lot of people during the last 12 months, etc. But actually, a lot of people have come out of this stronger, better connected, more empathetic, more caring, more understanding. I'm like Silver Swan is a very different company to what it was a year ago. So much for the better, even though it was like super scary at the beginning. The future, I think, is bright for like people should look forward to what we've got to come, because we are coming out of this and we need to appreciate how different we are as individuals coming out of this, and grab that and nurture that, and you know, not take anything for granted anymore. I think it's like we've got to look at the positives now, haven't we? So
we really have. And you know, also I think not sort of and I'm guilty of it as well, is keeping the mind and body you know, really in check, because I was there in the first early stages of the 3 a.m. Twitter checking thing. You know, we've just got to be very resilient and strong, and listen to the things we want to listen to, and block out all the rest of the noise that's going on.
Yeah, well, on that note, thank you so much for joining. Really good to get to know you a little bit better and find out a bit about what you do, and give you the opportunity to talk a bit about Umbra. And people listening, everybody listening is involved in the private sector, and everybody listening knows the importance of security across all the aspects of the cyber and the physical, and the select and the advice and all that kind of stuff. So I hope that people do reach out to you and connect with you, and come and use you should they need. And we'll make sure that we link to you, so people will definitely be able to get hold of you via LinkedIn, through Umbra, or through you personally. But thank you so much for joining, and everybody listening, thanks for listening in once again. Hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. And yeah, a couple of weeks time we'll be back, different guest obviously. If we can help you at all with your recruitment, if we can help you at all with your finding a job, please come visit us at Silver Swan Recruitment. And as always, you can connect with me directly at philippa@silverswanrecruitment.com. That's a wrap. I'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Cheers everyone.